Hey everyone, and welcome. Today we'll be discussing season 2 of the show Peacemaker. Fun fact: Peacemaker is set in Charlton County, which gets its name because Peacemaker was created by Charlton Comics, which was later acquired by DC Comics. This season came out in 2025 and stars John Cena, Danielle Brooks, and Jennifer Holland, and was created by James Gunn. So, without further ado, let's get right into it. Peacemaker Season 2 sees Peacemaker, aka Chris Smith, being hunted by Argus because he has a pocket universe. That is only partly true since the new head of Argus is Rick Flag Sr., and he is after revenge because Peacemaker killed his son. The 11th Street kids do anything they can to help Peacemaker out while trying to figure out Argus's goal with this quantum unfolding chamber. Peacemaker is an action comedy show. It has similar vibes to Superman, Kick Ass, or Archer. Peacemaker Season 1 was an absolute delight for me, so I was excited that they were going to be making a Season 2, especially because of all the restructuring at DC. I just didn't know what else was coming. This show not only gives us insight into a relatively unknown anti hero, but it also mixes action, comedy, and drama so well. It was interesting seeing this one come after James Gunn's Superman and seeing how the show connected to that movie, but also seeing how it further laid groundwork for the future of DC. Also, due to the change, they retconned the ending of season 1 to now have the Justice Gang, Shadows, instead of the Justice League. We learned so much about alternate dimensions while also seeing these characters grow and struggle a bit. Starting this season, the team is in shambles and they're all trying to figure out what's next. Well, except for Vigilante. It was interesting to see how the end of the last season has everyone picking up pieces and figuring out if they want their old life back or something new. Throughout the season, we see that so many of them are struggling to get back on their feet, and while their lives may be depressing, the one thing that seems to bring them some type of happiness is hanging out with their friends. I love seeing them all interact and support each other because the group in season 1 was more like coworkers, but in this season, they're having get togethers and getting drunk, protecting each other, and offering good advice to each other. By the end of the season, they create a new security or black ops company called Checkmate, which will probably be different from its comic counterpart, but it's nice to see them put together all their skill sets and use them for something good, especially to combat Argus, who clearly is not doing anything good. Peacemaker is played by John Cena, who proves that he is more than just a dumb hero. John brings the strength and determination and can handle the physicality of the role, showing his emotional range with the depression Peacemaker is going through and unraveling his troubled past. I think John was perfectly cast in this role, making me laugh and feel emotional for all that Chris has gone through. It was sad because he felt like he brought death because of all the people he killed or that he was close to that had died. I'm glad his team reminds him that most of those were not his fault, especially his brother, whom he killed, but they were both children and he didn't understand what was going on and was just following orders from his abusive father. He thought he found family in this other dimension, but it was twisted and lost, his family again. And he left that dimension on bad terms after Vigilante killed that version of his dad. And that version of his brother is now upset because he is still alive and he definitely will be coming for revenge. His arc also lets us know that fairy tales aren't real, so while you may get everything you want, open your eyes and pay attention because you may be missing some very clear red flags, like Chris missing that the world that he thought was his fantasy was a Nazi world, or even the aftermath of the Eagly situation in his house that he just walked right on past. After all, he had blinders on because he wanted this fantasy to be real. In the end, he ends up on Salvation Planet, and I'm interested to see how he survives and how he gets back, or maybe if it just ties into any new gods. The rest of the 11th Street kids this season don't see each other as much after the team disbanded, but they all have each other's backs, and once Argus puts a target on Chris, they try to all pitch in when they can. Economos is played by Steve Agee, and he is the only one still working at Argus. I love that Economos was in there giving his friends a head up before deciding what to tell Argus. He's not the most physically skilled, but he is pretty smart, so he tries to use his brain when he can. I love the variety of names he gets called, how bad he is at distracting people, and most of all, how scared he is of Eagly until Eagly hugs him in the end. Adebayo is played by Danielle Brooks, and she is Chris's best friend who seems to be like an emotional support for him. I feel like she is the communicator on the team and keeps everyone informed on what's going on and what needs to be done next. Her mom is Amanda Waller, and if there's one thing she has taken from her, it's her ability to lead, except that she leads with more compassion and kindness, and by the end of the season, we see that she's leading Checkmate, which was birthed from an idea that she had. Vigilante is played by Freddie Stroma, who is Chris's oldest friend, who, contrary to everyone else, seems to be doing just fine at the beginning of the season and just wants to be quizzed on animal facts. I think he has the least amount of problems going back to normal life because he was never just being a superhero and working for Argus. He had a job, even though it sucks. He really liked hanging out with Chris and has FOMO whenever Chris hangs out with other people that aren't him, and got emotional when Chris left him for another dimension, but he is a loyal friend, so he will do anything to help get him back. I love how he has a room full of money and drugs he confiscated, but doesn't trust the cops, so he literally just holds on to it until Adebayo convinces him to use the money. He may seem like an airhead, but he is a great fighter and tries to do what's right in their dimension as well in the Nazi one, except for talking to his mom nicely. I just know I wouldn't want to be his enemy because he's so good at fighting and might kill you before you even have time to plead your case. Hardcore is played by Jennifer Holland, who feels lost and picks fights because she's been blacklisted by Argus, and all she knows is working for black ops companies. She is a great fighter, is very observant, but can be a bit of a hothead. She struggles a little due to her failure to confront her feelings for Chris, which gets even more complicated when she's offered a job back, but she has to help bring him into Argus. She ends up bringing him in even though she really wasn't planning to, and it was really because he was about to get killed, which she didn't want, and she gave him a code word, so he wouldn't have come, but he ignored it, which proved that she did care for him. She was always leading the charge to get him back, but luckily she has friends around her telling her, hey, let's not go in guns blazing, let's think of a plan. At the end of the season, she convinces Sasha to meet Adebayo and convinces her to join the idea, which ends up being Checkmate. I just love that whether you think this or not, this group is looking out for each other and they work well together. Early in the season, Peacemaker goes through this pocket dimension door and finds a world that looks just like his with some minor differences he noticed, which is that his brother and dad are alive. He gets attacked by that world's Peacemaker and ends up killing him, and so he goes and pretends he is him for a while, switching between the two universes. After feeling like no one wants him in his universe, he goes back to the alternate dimension to live his life with alternate Amelia and his family. And it was just a cute moment, but it was also sad because there was so much he didn't know, and he was just running from his problems and didn't understand how much his friends were helping him. The more time we spent in this alternate dimension, the more I started to notice something wasn't right because it just felt very like stale. Later, when the real hardcore comes over, she immediately notices no people of color, which Chris didn't. And she notices the flags have Nazi symbols, and everyone is Nazis because in that world, the U.S. lost World War II. The Nazi plot twist caught me off guard, and Amelia and Chris make it out, but Adebayo gets caught out for being black, and the people chase her with the goal of putting her in a work camp, but she is saved by an unlikely ally, Judo Master. I love how this dimension seemed better, but there was one big problem which Chris didn't even notice because he was so focused on himself. While Adebayo and Judo Master are hiding out and discussing how bad the universe that they are in is, she drops one of my favorite lines of the season, which is, I don't know if this Nazi world is as different from our own world as we wish it was. It's very fitting for this time when we have a racist president who is pushing white supremacy, hatred, discrimination, conspiracy theories, and historical negationism. I'm glad that the show brought up this topic because sometimes it's in plain sight, like the alternate world, but sometimes it's hidden, and you have to be mindful because these people will lie to your face. And when you'll see, their beliefs via their actions, you'll know that that was a lie. I'm glad the team made it out of the Nazi universe, even though I don't think we are done with them yet, since Vigilante killed the Blue Dragon, and Peacemaker's brother is going to want some type of revenge. Creature Commandos introduces Rick Flag Sr., and in this season, he takes control of Argus. I hated him because he had ulterior motives and presented himself as a better option to Amanda Waller, but it was just empty words because he was breaking rules left and right and using people to get what he wanted. He is joined by his right hand, who he ends up sleeping with later, Sasha Bordeaux, and Langston Fleury, who is watching Economo since Rick doesn't trust him. Langston is played by Tim Meadows, who was a great addition to the cast, and he thinks getting the Peacemaker's little universal door will be easy, but eagerly ends up taking out his whole team, which it was hilarious. They ended up getting an eagle hunter named Red St. Wild, played by Michael Rooker, who says Eagly is the prime eagle, and to my surprise, actually has powers allowing him to track eagles. Eagly does end up being the prime eagle, and in a crazy moment, Eagly and a bunch of other eagles kill this eagle hunter, which was great, because don't go messing with my favorite eagle. Sasha Bordeaux is played by Sol Rodriguez, and she has a cybernetic enhancement, which I guess means that she fits into the realm of metahumans, since she says that she is one when discussing the potential prison. At the beginning of the season, she is very by the books and flirts with Rick and almost kills Chris before Harcourt comes in. By the end of the season, Sasha realizes that Rick is not a good person and he doesn't actually care about her and is using her, so she gives the 11th Street kids info on what he's actually doing, and she ends up working for a checkmate in the end. Judo Master makes an appearance again, helping Argus in the beginning, and he is always so funny to see as he eats his snacks and just dishes out as much sass as possible. I love how even though he is small, he will kick ass. Rick ends up getting help from Lex Luthor and pulls in some of his associates, which ties into Superman and may play a role down the line. I love how Sasha and Langston and even Judo Master switched sides and didn't just keep going through with the shenanigans at Argus. There are a lot of Easter eggs that come up in this season that I am interested to see where they go. The section of this phase of movies is gods and monsters, and at the end of the season, Chris gets left on Salvation, which seems small, but that planet in the comics is a training planet for the new gods, and it's overseen by Desaad, who is a new god of Apocalypse and follower of Darkseid, which leads me to wonder if we will see him soon, or maybe other new gods. Checkmate is another covert ops group, but it seems like they changed the origins because in the comics, Amanda Waller is the founder. So, of course, they were doing shady things. Belle Reve and Arkham are mentioned because they are both high security prisons, and they come up in Batman and the Suicide Squad stories often, but here they are trying to address the frequent criminal breakouts, which is something I think about often because it's like a rest stop for the criminals. There are mentions of the Ultra Humanite and Rainbow Creature in the alternate universe, so it'll be interesting to see if those characters will be coming up soon as well, or if there's something that is just in the past and it was just a nice little nod. There are so many that pop up. I may have missed some, and I'm excited to see if anything comes from them. I think another small, actually kind of big Easter egg that is shown in the show is Lex Luthor working for Argus, and his influence on Rick Flag Sr. And we saw in Superman how his dimensional door wasn't 100% ready, but now that he has access to Rick Flag Sr. and Chris's little contraption, Who knows what Lex Luthor might be doing next in his devious little plans. I love how in the finale we get introduced to Checkmate, which is started by Adebayo and her friend's support. I love how she has people from both sides of this fight who join her new organization after they decide they hate Argus and Rick Flag Sr.'s plans. Another reason I think it's great is that Superman established that many different billionaires are funding a variety of things, from superhero teams to their own personal vigilante stuff to lab experiments that have ruined people's lives. This season of Peacemaker showed that Argus isn't the only covert operations organization that will be in the DC with the arrival of Checkmate. It's a small thing, but I think it's helpful, and it makes some of the world feel more realistic by showing that multiple organizations do similar things and multiple billionaires exist just like real life. I think it's something that's small, but that superhero movies fail to acknowledge sometimes. There is not just one billionaire, there's not one covert operation group, there isn't just one superhero team. I'm excited to see how Argus and Checkmate step on each other's toes and see what other, heroes for hire might join either of the groups and if more will be added later. The different universe door is in the first season, but this season delves into it a little bit more and connects it to the greater DC universe, since something similar is created by Lex Luthor in Superman. I love how we got to see how Peacemaker got a hold of the technology to make and remove doors, and how there was so much that was left to explore. The sequence of Argus exploring doors perfectly shows how there are different worlds and universes, and even though we may not understand them all, they exist. I'm glad they dove into the significance of this door and gave us more insight into, Peacemaker, more specifically, Peacemaker's dad's role into getting this door created in this universe. This show constantly has me laughing, and I'm always amazed at what they can cook up that will have the viewer, me, laughing. I love how some of the jokes actually tie back to other pop culture references in some jokes, while other jokes could just be funny banter or actions from different characters. Most of the characters have something funny that they do, and even equally does as well, which is always unexpected but welcomed. The show makes me burst out laughing with the way that they handle these jokes and tee them up. They never feel out of place and truly are a highlight in this show. I think comedy is hard, so nailing it is always nice to see in a show because there are so many episodes where it will be tied into the story, but also they have to keep up the comedic moments if they want the show to be a comedy action show, and Peacemaker does that. The intro in season one was iconic, and this one is no different. To be honest, after the first time hearing it, it didn't really stick with me, but I listened to it more and more and fell in love with the song. I love how outside of the intro, the song Oh Lord and the band Foxy Shazam ended up playing a role in the storyline, as that is the band that Chris and Amelia go to see on the boat, which gets referenced throughout the season because we later learn that they kissed in that moment and it had never been addressed. I loved the dance in the beginning and never skipped it. And one minor thing it took me way too long to realize was that they have Amelia from the normal universe and then the one from the alternate one. And you can tell because of how they dress. Oh Lord is a fantastic song for the opener, and I'm glad it tied into the story. And more importantly, I'm glad that it got stuck in my head. My favorite part of the season was Tim Meadows as Langston Fleury. From the first scene, he was hilarious, bickering with Economos and talking about his bird blindness, which leads him to think eagerly as a parrot. I love it when they were getting ready to break into Peacemaker's house, and he gave the team nicknames that are all offensive, and one guy speaks up and he just makes his name more offensive, and then as the guy keeps talking, he just finds more and more offensive names. His moments on the show had me laughing every time, and I loved his chemistry with anyone he was on screen with, but especially at the end with Vigilante. I'm glad he joins Checkmate in the end and would love to see him come back in the future for other DC projects. Peacemaker Season 2 ups the ante by teaching more about other dimensions, building more of the characters' backstories, introducing us to new characters, and continuing to lay the groundwork for the future of DC. I love how the show didn't dip in quality and reminded me how good the first season was. It made me want even more. The cast was great and it balances the action and comedy so well to ensure you'll be laughing one moment and the next in awe by the awesome fight that's going down. Thank you for watching my video. I would love to hear your thoughts down below in the comments. If you have not subscribed, please do so you can keep up to date with more of my videos. But besides that, everyone stay safe, have fun, and goodbye.